Hi, I'm Ian Sweeney. As chair of the ADRA-UK board, I recently took a tour of the programs that ADRA has been conducting in the country of Burkina Faso. For the last 6 years now, ADRA-UK has been working with subsistence farmers living in rural villages in this impoverished country of Africa. ADRA has provided these villagers with new sources of water in the way of wells, boreholes and reservoirs. They have introduced improved methods of agriculture that have greatly increased food security. Reforestation programs are providing a defense against soil erosion and desertification. Fuel-efficient cooking stoves have had a major impact not only on the lives of the people, but also the environment. Often, people query the effectiveness of development programs and think that there is little lasting impact. With 2 projects completed since 2007 and a 3rd project underway, I wanted to see for myself if ADRA is able to bring sustainable change to people living in poverty. When I told people that I was going to Burkina Faso, I would often get a blank stare, followed by a curious, "Where's that?" Have you heard of Burkina Faso? Many people have not. Burkina Faso, also known as Burkina for short, is a relatively small country located in West Africa. While you may not have heard of Burkina Faso, many have probably heard of some of the country's neighbours, such as Mali, Niger to the north, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire to the south. With few natural resources, its landlocked status and general underdevelopment, Burkina is a country facing many challenges. The United Nations ranks Burkina as one of the poorest countries of the world. Only about 27% of the population knows how to read. About 90% of the population work in subsistence agriculture, but even then, only about half of these are able to grow enough food to adequately feed their families. Poor, depleted soils, desertification and frequent droughts give meagre returns for many of Burkina's farmers. Children suffer from malnutrition. Without access to clean drinking water, about 24,000 children in Burkina die every year from diarrhea alone. With these sad statistics in mind, I can see why ADRA-UK has chosen Burkina as one of the countries in which to work. Please join with me as we discover how ADRA is forever changing the lives of these forgotten people in a forgotten land. Hi, my name is Ian Sweeney and I've just arrived in Burkina Faso in the west of Africa. It's very hot, beautiful country, but I'm actually here not for a holiday but to see the work that ADRA has been doing. ADRA has been working here in Burkina Faso for the past 6 years and it is hoped that she'll be here for another 3 years. I'd like you to come and join with me for the next few minutes as we tour around Burkina Faso, looking at the work that ADRA is doing and the impact and the change that it is making in the lives of many people. After meeting up with the ADRA team and going over the strategy for our visit, we headed out into the field. First up on our schedule was to meet a prominent chief. Naba was a very gracious man who invited me to sit and talk with him in the shade of a shelter near his home. I would like to ask you, what difference has ADRA made to your life?
ADRA has brought a lot of changes to the village of Souli. One of the very first things ADRA did for the community was dig wells and provide us with a deep borehole. The next thing that ADRA did was provide training programs that showed us how to live better. They showed us how to grow new and better crops and how to make extra income from our land. One of the most amazing things that ADRA has introduced to us is a legume plant called mucuna. ADRA brought us the seeds and told us all of the benefits of growing mucuna, how it would actually fertilise our soil in a natural way. We were a little sceptical at first, but after 5 years of working with mucuna, we have found out that everything that they said about this miracle crop was true.
So what we're seeing here is a plant that I understand comes from South America. They call it mucuna. And what you see the farmer doing is ploughing the plant, as green as it is, back into the soil. It's not a crop that is to be harvested, but what it is doing is putting the nutrients back into the soil. And so what the farmer will find that when they plant their millet or maize, the soil has a higher nitrogen content. So as you can see there now, they're putting it back into the soil. I learned that growing mucuna is very easy. You simply plough your field, you plant the mucuna seeds and forget about it until it is time to plough it under. Because the soil that you are planting it in is often so bad that not even weeds will grow, you don't even need to weed it. After just one season of mucuna, you can then grow any crop you want and get an excellent harvest in that field for the next 3 years. Right now we're stood in a field of mucuna. There's about 1 acre all around about us. And this mucuna actually is grown for its seeds, and you can begin to see the flowers there coming through. And what they're doing here is that instead of actually sowing the mucuna back into the soil to fertilize it, they're actually growing the seeds and they're being used as a cash crop, because people are realizing now that this thing is so beneficial to the soil that the farmers have seen that they can make money from the seeds, and so they're selling the seeds on to other farmers who are then growing the plants to plow back into the soil. Also, the added benefit of mucuna is that the leaves, many of the animals, the cattle, goats and so on, they really do flourish on eating the leaves of the mucuna. And so from what we're hearing, it's all a benefit to the farmers and to the community, and it's like a wonder crop. There are no side effects. Before leaving the village, I had the chance to speak to the chief's wife. As we visited together, I was able to learn about some of the things that ADRA has done for them from a woman's perspective. Please tell us about how ADRA has improved the lot of the women in your village.
The women of Suli have really appreciated the water that ADRA has brought us. During the dry season, we would often have to walk 7 kilometers every day to find water. Now we can wake up and just walk 200 meters to fetch clean drinking water. The other big improvement that ADRA has brought into our lives is the fuel-efficient cooking stoves. These have really reduced the workload of the women here. We used to have to walk very far every day just to find enough firewood to cook our meals. Now, with this new design for our stoves, we only use about 10% of the firewood that we used to use.
The traditional way to cook food here in Burkina was to get 3 stones together to hold your pot and then build a fire under that. Exposed to the open air and wind, this method required a lot of firewood every day. By building a simple enclosure around the traditional 3 stones, they now only need a few twigs to get a hot fire that would cook the meal quickly and efficiently.
The borehole and stoves have had another big benefit. Now that we are no longer spending most of our day fetching water and firewood, we now have the time to work on income-generating projects that ADRA has shown us how to do. Many of the women of our village are now making money by growing vegetables and selling the produce in a local market.
I'm just heading towards a dam that ADRA built in 2009. Evidently, it has really transformed the lives of the people who live in and around this community. So I'm just taking a hike along this path to see what it looks like and find out how it's changed people's lives. After a brief hike through green pastures and gardens, I found it. A beautiful oasis in a once very dry region of Burkina. What has made the difference? A simple concrete and stone wall to hold the rainwater that falls during the rainy season. This creates this beautiful reservoir that serves the surrounding villages all the way through the dry season without ever running dry. Since ADRA constructed this dam, how has your life and the life of the communities changed?
This reservoir has been a wonderful help to us in several ways. First of all, it's providing drinking water for all of our animals to drink, especially through the dry season. This means that we're now able to raise more animals, which in turn provides more food and more income. Secondly, we're able to raise fish in the reservoir, not only for our own use, but also as a way to make income. The dam has raised the water table of the whole area around the reservoir, and we're now able to grow many crops and vegetables that we were not able to before, including rice.
I was intrigued by this last statement. As we have travelled throughout Burkina, about the only two crops that I had seen were millet and sorghum. I certainly had not seen any rice. Rice takes a lot of water to grow. How is it possible that these people were able to grow rice crops in a region of Africa that has suffered a lot of drought? I asked them to show me their rice fields, and they were very happy to oblige. In fact, I could tell that it was with a real sense of pride that they led me down through the fields below their reservoir. I was amazed to discover acres of beautiful, healthy rice fields, turning slightly golden, almost ready for harvest. Today I'm standing in a field of rice. It needs to be said that this is an unusual sight, particularly in Burkina Faso, because rice requires a lot of water, and water, there isn't a great deal of that in this country. However, because of the provision of the dam, the farmers have been able to irrigate the fields, and they have successfully been able to grow rice. Before the construction of the dam, there were only one or two farmers who were planting rice, but not to any great success. But right now there are many acres of rice, and all because the people have taken ownership, working in partnership with ADRA, and they have now been able to irrigate these fields, and the harvest, which in a few weeks' time will be taken in. It's just been a tremendous success. They're not only growing for their own families, but they're now also being able to lift themselves out of poverty because of the excess that is being grown. They're able to sell that through to the markets. And so they are just doing so very well in this enterprise in partnership with ADRA. I sat down with one of the community leaders in the village of Selogin to find out from him how the ADRA program has helped the people of his village.
Our village used to be known far and wide as the village with no water. During the dry seasons, the women and children of the village used to have to walk as far as 10 kilometers every day to get water. It used to be so bad here that the young women of the village used to run away and get married to men in villages that were closer to water sources so that they wouldn't have to spend their life fetching water. Now, with the wells, the boreholes and the reservoir that ADRA has helped us with, everything has changed. Now we are known as the village with lots of water. In fact, now people from 30 other villages come to us during the dry season for water, because our reservoir never runs dry. Before ADRA came to help us, the little bit of rain that we would get each year would quickly run off our fields, taking with it the topsoil and any bit of fertiliser that we might have put on our land. Our soil was exhausted and very unproductive. ADRA showed us how to make our own natural fertiliser with compost. They showed us how to build the pits and layer the natural ingredients to make an excellent, efficient source of nutrients for our soil. They then showed us how to keep this fertiliser from running off with the rains by building stone cordon dikes in our fields. Now the fields and gardens are coming back to life. However, there's no way that we would ever be able to make enough fertiliser in our compost pits to cover all of our land. We simply don't have enough animals to generate that much manure. That's where Mukuna has been so helpful in restoring our fields to health. It's worked so well, we call it green manure. ADRA has also taught us the importance of trees. Before ADRA came, we just took whatever wood nature provided for us naturally and used that for our construction and firewood. However, we were finding that it was getting harder and harder to find wood. About 6 years ago, ADRA came along and gave us the idea of planting trees. They recommended a number of different varieties and helped us get the seedlings. Now we are planting thousands of trees every year, not only for construction and firewood, but also for income. We're planting fruit trees and shea butter trees. We plant the trees right in our fields along with our crops.
As we continued our tour, we ran into another farmer that showed us around his fields and shared with us why he was planting trees in his fields.
I first got the idea to plant trees on my farm from ADRA. When they started working here, about 6 years ago, they took a bunch of us to another region in Burkina that had recently become a complete desert because all of the trees had been taken from the land. We could see that the same thing was starting to happen in our own province, and it really motivated us to do something to save our fields. ADRA got us some seedlings and helped us to get started. It's been a lot of hard work, but it is really paying off. Trees not only help prevent soil erosion, they also bring income. They provide firewood, they have fruit that can be sold in the market, and some of the trees have leaves and roots that can be used and sold for medicinal purposes. I've been planting trees every year now since that field trip with ADRA. I now have several thousand trees on my farm. This year alone, I have planted over 500 trees.
With so much deforestation going on in our world, it was nice to see firsthand a program that is promoting reforestation. Before we headed back to the capital, I wanted to inspect one of the boreholes that ADRA has installed for the people. It was exciting for me to find the ladies there at the well pumping away, filling up their buckets and containers. I had a chance to sit down with the water committee and speak to them about their borehole. The water committee is set up to manage the use and maintenance of the well. They collect a small fee for use. How much do you have to I asked them how much people had to pay for the water that they used. I discovered that most families pay about £1 a year for water. Some villagers who may use water for income generating purposes have to pay more, but the fee is kept low so that the water is accessible to everyone who needs it. The money is collected and kept at a bank in town for use when needed for maintenance of the well. This is good planning on the part of ADRA. This helps the local village take ownership of the borehole. No longer is it the ADRA borehole, it is the village borehole. When the pump breaks down, the people are not going to wait around for ADRA to come fix the ADRA well. They are going to quickly do it themselves with the money they have saved.
But why is collecting water women's work?
I had to laugh at the answer that the men gave me. They said, since it is the women who use the water to cook, it only makes sense that they are the ones to fetch the water. I decided that I needed to speak to a couple of these women and find out from them just how much this borehole meant to them.
We now have clean drinking water and we have enough. Before, we used to have to walk up 7 kilometres for water, and even then, it was not good, clean, safe water. Those who were strong might be able to go to the waterhole twice a day, but more often than not, people would only go for water once a day. We would have to use the water supply very sparingly. We would use it for cooking, drinking, and a little bit to clean the children. Now, with the borehole that ADRA has put right next to our village, our lives are so much better. Now we are only a few steps away from clean, safe drinking water. If we want, we can go 2, 4, 6, even 10 times a day. We no longer have to ration water. We have plenty for drinking, cooking, and bathing. We can now wash our hands before we eat. We have water for our animals and other income-generating activities. We can even wash our clothes right at home. Our children no longer get sick and die from the drinking water. Now, when our children get malaria or diarrhea, we know that the water that we give them as treatment will actually help, not make things worse. We are so thankful to ADRA for giving us safe, pure, clean water for our children.
It was hard not to get a little choked up to see the passion and the gratefulness of these women as they talked about how much the gift of clean water meant to them. This, I believe, is the essence of the work that ADRA does. So often, we might think of ADRA as the agency that rushes in to help in the time of emergency and disaster, that it is the Adventist Disaster and Relief Agency. And it is true that ADRA is often a first responder in times of disaster, famine, floods, earthquakes, or here in the case of Burkina, drought. But ADRA is much more than that. In fact, ADRA stands for Adventist Development and Relief Agency. Development is what ADRA is doing in poor villages around the world after the crisis is over. Developing communities, developing the lives of people, helping people live safer, healthier, cleaner, happier, more self-reliant lives, helping communities and people be better prepared for the next drought. The programs that ADRA-UK conducts in Burkina Faso and in many other countries around the world would not be possible without the partnership and funding that we receive from the UK government and the European Union. ADRA-UK has now completed 2 projects in Burkina Faso and recently started a third with the support of the European Commission. The total cost of these programs is approximately €3 million. 75% of that funding comes from the EC and 25% comes from the ADRA annual appeal. What this means is that when you give to ADRA, your donation is often matched many times over by our partners in government. What are your expectations? What are the European Union's expectations of NGOs? What do you expect to see of us?
In terms of development aid, they are a very important partner for us to implement our projects in the various regions in Burkina Faso, but also regionally. They have an expertise which is not always present at government level. They bring new approaches in terms of implementing projects. They are also a source of information about what's going on the field.
The assistance that we've received from ADRA-UK, the European Union and other donors has been very important. The government of Burkina Faso has set some ambitious development goals for the country for the next 10 years. The programs that ADRA is doing in terms of reforestation, soil conservation, land reclamation and water systems have all worked hand in hand with these goals, but more importantly have directly met the real needs of the people. We're all very grateful to the partnership that we have with the European Union and ADRA-UK and look forward to a bright future as we continue to work together.
La 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 hey yo, la 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 hey yo.
As I've come to the end of my trip here in Burkina Faso, I'll just share with you a few reflections of my time here. I suppose on a personal level, I've learned to be much more grateful and not to take for granted the things that we have in the West. Running water, electricity. When we want to cook a meal, we just turn to the gas or electric and you turn a button and wham, there you go. But just the improved cooking stove. The people are so appreciative of the skills that ADRA have introduced in that and how life has made such a dramatic change with such simple things. You know, one of the beauties of ADRA as well is that it seeks to help people irrespective of belief, culture. You know, I've seen ADRA working amongst the Muslims, among Christians, among animists. And the help that ADRA gives is equal to all. Who needs help? Who needs an improvement in their life? It doesn't come with an agenda except maybe Matthew 25. We see somebody who's thirsty, so let's give them a drink. We see somebody who's hungry, so let's give them some food. We see someone who is in need, and so let's try to meet their needs. And I think that's a powerful, powerful ministry that ADRA brings. Every community we visited, ADRA is, just high up in everybody's esteem. We've been presented with so many chickens and things like that. Why? Because the people are truly grateful. I mean, whole villages turned out just to say thank you to ADRA. I'd like to thank you for joining with us as we've just visited some of the communities here in Burkina Faso and seen some of the tremendous work that ADRA is conducting. And certainly I'm leaving here with a renewed determination to support ADRA both in my prayers and financially. And whilst it's been nigh on impossible to capture what has been done here over the past 6 years, I hope that you've begun to capture some of the essence of the great work, the great ministry that ADRA is conducting.